Hi. Hi, everybody. My name is Benjamin Felix. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Stackline. Stackline is a retail media and digital intelligence marketing company. Basically, we operate and know everything that is happening in the e-commerce space, and that is not hyperbole. Anyway, I'm here to join and joined with Paris. Paris, let's do a little bit of fireside chat. Let's have a conversation. Let's get to know each other a little bit better and deep dive into this.
Awesome, I'd love to.
Awesome. So let's talk about who you are. Tell me about yourself. Long walks on the beach.
Hey everyone, so my name is Paris Shah. I work at Georgia Pacific, where I lead the Omnichannel Shopper Experience organization. So that basically encompasses all of your in-store and retail media marketing as well as your consumer promotions. I mean, I've been doing this for a couple of years. Been at Georgia Pacific for 6 years in total now. Prior to this role, I was also working in our e-commerce sales organization. So this is actually my first in-person Brand Innovators event since the pandemic. So really excited to see everyone. There's a lot of familiar faces here and looking forward to meeting a lot of you afterwards.
Awesome. Yeah, for me, it's the first as well. And it's weird seeing all of these faces. And yeah, it's weird being in front of people now. So talk to me. You're from Houston.
I am from Houston.
Who is your favorite team?
Houston Astros,
Hey.
in the World Series right now.
Yeah, he and I both have the same thing in common, except I live in Philadelphia and my 16-month-old is about to throw a battery at me if I continue to root for them. Anyway, so that's a joke for Philly fans. Anyway, all right, there we go. All right, so let's talk a little bit about your role, how you define success, specifically omni-channel success. What does that look like?
That's a great question. So, omnichannel success, I think, has really evolved over the last few years. First of all, I'd say pre-pandemic, a lot of, what we used to do was focus more on in-store marketing, really, connecting with shoppers in-store at the point of purchase. But I think, as the pandemic set in, we saw a significant shift in our business, right? So all of a sudden, you saw the paper category essentially, fast forward 3 to 4 years in terms of e-commerce adoption. And so as that happened, you saw a significant shift in the way that consumers shop. So not only are they shopping in-store, but they're also shopping online. And quite frankly, these consumers are shopping both in-store and online for our products. And so as we saw that shift happen, a lot of what we had to do was change what success looks like for our business. And success for us is really driving conversion and making sure that consumers are shopping Georgia Pacific brands. And our brands are Quilted Northern toilet paper, Angel Soft toilet paper, Ronnie paper towels, Sparkle paper towels, Dixie paper plates and paper cups and paper bowls, as well as Vanity Fair napkins. If you don't purchase one of those paper products, you're making the wrong choice, by the way. And so for us, really success became how do we drive more conversions and more households into our portfolio across all fulfillment options, not just in store, not just e-commerce, but across the board. So really, at the end of the day, I think what really omnichannel success looks like for us is converting both in the digital space as well as physical space.
Awesome, that's great. Can you talk a little bit about how you define the consumer set? Do you look at market share? Like, what are those specific KPIs?
So, I think at the end of the day, we look at sales, market share, just trial, repeat. So, really we look at everything that your traditional CPG companies will look like, right? Nothing different, but I think what we try to do is look at it differently in the sense of in the omnichannel world, because of how consumers are shopping now, I think a lot of it really focuses on how do you get on the list, how do you get in the cart, and how do you get in their heart, right? And so that really dovetails into how do you not only engage consumers, but engage them in a very different way in the omnichannel space. And if you think about it, when you're trying to get on the list, in the cart, and in the heart, that evolves how consumers shop and engage with your brand, right? Whether it's through the retail media space, through digital, whether it's in person, at the physical shelf as well. And so that's how we kind of define the consumer and engagement.
So you keep using the word consumer.
Yep.
And consumer is really the title of this session is consumer engagement, modern consumer engagement. So do you make a distinction at Georgia Pacific between consumers and customers?
That's a great question. We do, specifically in the packaged goods space, because consumers are specifically shoppers, right? There are people who have an intent to purchase. Within our world, customers are retailers. And so we that's how we distinguish the two. But at the end of the day, we talk to retailers about shoppers being customers for them.
Great. So talked about the relationship with those consumers. How is that changing? How has that changed, during COVID, pre-COVID, to now we're living in post-COVID? I think I saw 1 or 2 masks. but like, how are we living now? How are you looking at things now?
So during the pandemic, like I said, there was a significant shift in shopping habits, and consumers were now shopping across fulfillment options, in-store, pickup, and delivery. And as that shift happened, a lot of what we had to do was make sure that we are in front of the consumer and the shopper across all touch points. It no longer was winning in store. Now it's a matter of how do you reach that, consumer shopper when they're in the mobile app of a retailer, when they are, surfing the internet, when they're on ESPN, when they're on Yahoo, as well as how do you get in front of them, in store. So we changed how we have to engage with those shoppers based on what the consumer is doing, making sure that we're in front of them as much as possible throughout the day, because the way that people shop has completely changed. Before, you're making your decision on, when to buy toilet paper, paper towels, paper products at the shelf. Now, people are making their decisions, every day, 7 days a week, as you're building your cart to purchase online. And some stuff that we actually uncovered, just based on discussions with customers and retailers, was that these consumers, they are shopping throughout the course of the week, and so now they're shopping for paper products maybe between 4 to 6 p.m. on as they're waiting at a stoplight and building their basket at Walmart or Kroger, or they might be shopping after they put their kids to bed at night, or they may be shopping as they're building their list and their cart online, or they might just be purchasing when they're at the shelf. So how we reach the consumer or shopper and where we reach them and how we engage them has completely changed throughout the course of the pandemic. And so now it really requires us to be in touch with that shopper or consumer across every point of his or her path of purchase.
That's great, because we talk about it internally a little bit at Stackline, basically saying that brands should be able to sell their product anywhere at any time to anyone when they want it, right? Do you kind of subscribe to that same kind of philosophy?
Absolutely.
So how do you kind of you're looking at the journey, you're looking at kind of the before the pre-shop, you're looking at the in the cart, and I love the idea of in the heart. Can you talk a little bit about the in the heart kind of stage? Because I'm curious.
Yeah. So, if you think about, obviously, let me start with getting on the list, right? So a lot of the way that people have changed their shopping habits as the emergence of, retailer apps have kind of grown. More consumers are building their list in terms of what they want to purchase, either in store or even online. Then they're actually adding stuff to their cart if they're shopping online, or if they're physically, going down the aisle, they're actually building their cart and they're referring to the list that they have on their app and then getting the heart. So I think a fundamental shift that most brands and companies have seen is that with e-commerce specifically, people who purchase something one time are going to repeat purchase, especially in the e-commerce space. So if you think about pickup and delivery, it's a repeat purchase. And if they purchase once and they like the product, they're going to go back to their recently purchased list and rebuild their list from there. So getting the heart requires having a really good shopper and consumer experience with that brand and that product. And so a lot of what we try to do to get the heart is make sure that we have right content available, within the retailer's mobile apps. We have the right content at the shelf, and we're reaching them in the right way to have a positive experience across the entire path of purchase, from the point in time that they interact with our brand, online or on TV, all the way until the end, when they purchase, and then make sure that they have what they need in order to repeat purchase. Well, that's what drives it, being in the heart.
That's great. And you talked about the shelf. So it's interesting. Back in the day, it was the planograms, and you'd see the things on the people would take, photos of the stores, the items on the shelves. Today, it's the digital shelf, right? Can you talk a little bit about the digital shelf?
Yeah, definitely. So what I'd say is that there are still two shelves now. There's a physical shelf and digital shelf. The physical shelf is still where the majority of sales are happening, right? But then the digital shelf is where a lot more sales, or incremental sales, are starting to happen, and more of where the influencing in the decision happens, right? And so as we think about the physical shelf, there's a lot that needs to be unpacked in order to win in the digital space. So number one, you have to make sure you have the right product there, right? So the way that people shop in store may differ from the way that people shop online. People may buy different pack sizes because it's not about what fits in the shopping cart, it's what fits in the shopping in your car trunk, really, right? So people shop differently online versus in store, so making sure you have the right product. You also have to make sure you're able to win on price as well. So if you think about the current inflationary landscape, people are becoming more price sensitive, so you want to make sure you have the right price point too. You want to make sure that you have the right content out there as well, and making sure that the right content involves having the right image, having the right above the fold content, below the fold content, and then also you want to make sure you have the right, marketing campaign to support, that consumer or shopper, making sure that you're in front of them at the right time, anytime, anywhere, so that you are what they add into their cart.
Great. You stole my next question. So this is we were talking about inflation. I want to continue down the path of the digital shelf and talking about retail commerce. So when at Stackline we talk about the digital shelf of being kind of the battleground for eyeballs, right? And everybody sees it. When you make a search on Amazon, you see products show up here or there or what have you, and then you see the little sponsored one. That's because a brand has said, this is a valuable search. This is literally somebody stepping onto a car lot, right, and saying, I'm going to buy that thing. That's the equivalent, right? So, so how much focus are you guys putting on this? Because this has kind of exploded. This is kind of what's helped kind of Stackline grow, and you guys have that too, and hence why we're always chatting. But talk a little bit about why this is becoming increasingly important.
Yeah. So what you're referring to is retail media. Retail media has become a huge focus area for not only Georgia Pacific, but across the entire CPG landscape. And a key driver of why, so there's, I think, a couple of reasons. Number one, retailers, have a lot more first-party data that they've really started to collect with, with just the growth in app downloads. They're now capturing more of that first-party data. As more memberships are being sold, the first-party data is being collected by grocery retailers, club retailers, mass retailers as well. And so with the emergence of first-party data and cookie deprecation on the horizon, it's important to win in retail media because now that the shopper is shopping, anytime, anywhere, you want to make sure that you have the right product and the right presence from that shopper and the right experience. Because if you don't, you're going to lose that sale. And when you lose that sale and the shopper is happy with what they purchased and a repeat purchase in the future, that impacts your ability to get into the heart, right? And so that's where you want to make sure that what you start with is how to figure out how to get into the consumer's heart, then work your way backwards into how to get into the cart, and then how to do that as well.
Awesome, that's great. So let's talk some challenges, and as maybe we flip it, brand positive opportunities, right? Let's talk about the economy, right? So if everybody is worried about a recession or any kind of bumps in the road, and everybody continues to think that we might be in one, guess what? We're probably in one, right? How are you looking and planning for the next 18 months?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Ben. Planning for the next 18 months, what I'd say is that number one, at Georgia Pacific, data is at the heart of every decision that we make. We want to make sure that we leverage the data that we have about our consumers, all of our first-party data, in order to figure out how to, I'd say effectively plan for the next 18 months, making sure that we have the right assortment, we have the right merchandising plans, the right marketing, assets and campaigns available to reach the consumer, especially, when they are more, say, budget constrained at home. And so what that means is, we may have to tweak some of our marketing campaigns in order to speak to this consumer in a different way, or we may even have to change some of our go-to-market plans on the fly because, the way that the shopper shops, just our category has changed dramatically over the last, 9 months or 12 months, and because of that, we're having to change how we do our planning over the next 18 months. At the end of the day, I think that, we use data to determine how to plan more effectively. And so we're kind of, being very agile in the way that we go to market. And so what that requires us to do is plan differently. And in terms of the next 18 months, I think a lot of what we'll really focus on doing is making sure that as a consumer changes their path of purchase and their, entire shopping journey, we kind of accommodate to what that new path of purchase and shopping journey looks like.
Awesome. So what economy? Done. Nailed it. Let's talk about what else keeps you up at night. What are the other things that are on the horizon? The things that you're thinking about that are planning the 5,000-pound gorillas that maybe you don't see or maybe other people don't see.
I'd be remiss to say that cookie deprecation doesn't keep me up at night, right? So, with Google having pushed off cookie deprecation for at least another year, and what keeps me up at night is, how do we continue to effectively reach that consumer and shopper when they are near the path, near the purchase, on their purchase journey. At Georgia Pacific, we're making just the collection of first-party data a big priority for us. There's a lot that we do to try to build that relationship, with the consumer, because ultimately to be, in that consumer's heart and in their cart and on that list, we have to make sure we're in front of them at all times. And so with that, I'd say that cookie deprecation is something that we're constantly discussing in terms of how do we adjust to this new norm that's going to happen next year, hopefully, or not hopefully, I hope it doesn't. But if it happens, we want to be ready to react, right? And so a lot of that requires us to figure out and plan how do we have the right data, but then how do we also leverage the data of our partners, retail partners and business partners, so that we can make sure we're in front of that consumer and shopper, regardless of where the economy is, regardless of inflation.
Perfect, great. And to be clear, I was laughing because this is the second year in a row that they've pushed it back, right? And we wonder if it's ever going to go away. But I do think it's kind of incumbent and important to point out that when they do make the change, and if you're not ready, you're kind of in a bad position, right? Not kind of, like you're effed. So let's play a little bit around. I feel like I'm holding these cards like I'm Jimmy Fallon or something. So let's do a little bit of a hot take round, right? Where I'm going to give you a topic. You're going to say ice cold, it's heating up, or it's on fire. Okay. So my wife's suggestion. So let's do clean rooms.
Heating up.
Heating up.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about why you think they're heating?
Yeah, definitely. With so obviously with cookie deprecation on the rise, and it's going to be very important for a lot of brands and companies to be able to find ways to reach shoppers. And with the existence of clean rooms, you're able to bring together many different companies and bring the companies together to essentially create bunkers in which you can market more effectively to shoppers. So I think with different companies having different numbers of first party data available, bringing them together into a clean room will allow for brands and companies to extend their reach and do it in a much more effective manner than if there was not existence of a clean room. So I feel like that, plus with all the data available in a clean room, I feel like that's really heating up right now. I think by this time next year it'll probably be on fire.
Definitely agreed. And given the announcements that Amazon made over at Unbox last week, clean rooms was definitely mentioned more than a few times in the keynote speech. Mm-hmm. All right, let's bring a fun one. I'm laughing. The metaverse.
Ice cold. So I was an early adopter in the metaverse back in like the early or mid 2000s when Second Life was around. I think Joseph Jaffe was kind of the pioneer behind that. I just feel like it's more of an early adopter kind of thing where there's a lot of talk and chat around it. There just isn't really any plans to kind of scale the metaverse and how to get people involved. But obviously, Meta is really trying to get into that space and invest a lot. They've lost billions of dollars, obviously, behind it. I think the vision is great there, but I just see consumer adoption being very low on the metaverse right now.
Awesome. Let's talk customer loyalty.
That's firing up. And I think customer loyalty is going to be very important because, as I mentioned, to get in the heart, people are going to become loyal to brands, right? And one of the biggest challenges is that right now, with the emergence of more private label products across more categories, it becomes very hard to keep that loyalty among shoppers. So you have to make sure you're able to engage and persuade that shopper to purchase your products and not really lead to private label or to more lower cost, more mainstream economic options. And so I think that the focus on customer loyalty is going to continue to heat up, and it's an area that should be, on fire for every brand just about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, one of the solutions that Stackline has is Brand Club, which basically lets what is your actual loyalty, what is your repeat purchase, and getting that real first-party data. One of the data points that we saw was 12.2% of brands actually have loyal customers, meaning have multiple retail purchasers, which is fascinating to me. That means that if you are able to find customer loyalists, right, that changes your economics completely, just completely. Because it comes from a leaky funnel into a very holistic and happy funnel. Let's bring up the next one, retail media.
Retail media firing up. Every retailer, not just retailer, but every retailer is obviously in the space. It is a battle for every retailer to capture a larger, share of the national media dollars. I know we're at IHG's headquarters right now, but I think about Marriott. Marriott got in the retail media game, right? There are, both endemic and non-endemic brands and companies getting into the space. And so I feel like retail media is going to continue to be a very hot topic over the next few years, especially with cookie deprecation on the horizon. Just thinking about the 1P data that's available through these retail media networks. it's around to stay, and I think it's the capabilities, while they are subpar right now at most retailers or on most retail media networks, they're only going to, I think, advance and improve, at which point I think that this will be a very hot topic in 2-3 years.
Perfect. Let's talk social commerce.
So social commerce, I feel like it's heating up, right? I'd say for the last 10 years or so, people have been talking about social commerce. But if you think about, the consumer's path of purchase, so when they get into the social space, it's a place where they don't want to, necessarily, they don't want to be exposed to brands, and they don't want to buy things. But I think what's happening with the emergence of things like Instagram, right? With TikTok, people are engaging with brands now differently, since it is more image-based, more video-based than it was, in more of a text world with, Facebook. And so I think it's heating up because over the next few years, you're going to see people shift how they shop, specifically, with the social platforms. And if you think about just the partnerships that are happening with retail media networks as well, the retail media networks are going to make a lot more of their social platforms more shoppable. And so I think with the increased investments in the retail media space, that's going to make social commerce a bigger part of how brands and retailers can win with just younger shoppers, Gen Z and so forth.
But a wait and see on Twitter to see what Elon does with the whole thing.
That's a wait and see for sure.
Definitely. Okay, last one is customer data platform, CDPs.
CDPs, I'd say I'm moderate on. CDPs have been around for a while. I think that just the integration of CDPs into a brand's tech stack, it's kind of hit or miss. We've seen some, at least I've been exposed to some CDPs that seem to have great capabilities. There are some that I think have a lot of opportunity, but I'm just kind of lukewarm on the CDPs because I feel like the CDPs will eventually be replaced with just with more of a focus on retail media and clearance.
Awesome. One more. Privacy, customer privacy, consumer privacy.
Yeah, consumer privacy, I think will be it's on fire. Just with all the state regulations, thinking about GDPR as well. There's gonna be with cookie deprecation and just what Apple and Google's doing. I think that the focus on the consumer wanting privacy and not having their data shares to be even bigger in the future. So I continue to see more just regulations and restrictions in the space continuing.
Awesome, Paras. Thank you very much. It's been great.